Good evening, everyone. It's 6 p.m., February 21st, 2024. It's time to call the City Council meeting to order. Mrs. Jones, roll call, please.
Mr. Austin?
Here.
Mr. Shuck? Ms. McGinnis?
Here.
Ms. Dowling?
Here.
Ms. Price?
Here.
Mr. Prine?
Here.
Mr. Taylor?
Here.
Mayor Hoppermore?
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Brian Reese, who we very much appreciate, will lead us in a prayer and pledge.
Gladly invite you to join me. Our Father, we come before you this evening thankful for another opportunity to be here, and I pray that you just grant our city council wisdom and discernment for decisions that are on the agenda. Lord, I just thank you for our law enforcement as we see just another great officer promoted. Just pray you bless him and his family as he serves in this new role. Pray that you be with all our first responders, our police department, fire department, EMTs, those who work at the hospital, who just serve and help so many. Thank you for them. And I just pray that you'd be with all those in our city that serve in different capacities, all through the departments. Thank you for their hard work and the blessings that we receive in our community for the work they do. Bless this meeting tonight. May your will be done. In your name we pray. Amen. Let's stand together and say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated.
Thank you, Brian. Okay, that gets us to announcements and public comments. And first thing we're going to do, Mr. Jess Brown is getting promoted to sergeant at the police department, and Deputy Chief Summers is going to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. I always get excited whenever you, as a department, can afford to give someone an opportunity to have a promotion. And it's an exciting, it's also it's needed for the department. We're growing by leaps and bounds. We have so many new people, and to give someone an opportunity to be a leader and mentor is a big deal. So tonight, Jesse will come up. Just for clarification, Jesse has already been officially promoted by the Merit Board February 6th. Yeah, February 6th. This is the first council meeting since then. But Jesse's a K-9 handler. He's been with us for about 7 years, a little over 7 years. Yep, night shift, working the night shift currently. And he's doing a great job, so we're getting excited that he's taking on this role. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your willingness to step up and be a leader in the department. So with that, please, thank you, appreciate it. Thank you very much.
So silly.
Appreciate it.
Okay, so I'll say it before anybody else does. We'd really like you to stay, but if you want to leave and you're here for Jess, now's probably the time. So.
I'm not staying.
Thank you, guys. We appreciate your service. Thank you.
As a testament to what I just said, that's a lot of support for night shift. I think come out, so
Yeah.
they have Jesse and the excitement they have for his opportunity. It's a big deal.
Absolutely.
Proud of that in the department.
Well, Deputy Chief, I think you guys have done a great job in your administration and bringing everybody together and mentoring new people, and proud of our police department. Thank you. Okay, we'll go on to, is there any other announcements or public comment that's not on the agenda? Hearing none, we will get to the consent agenda.
Move to approve the meeting minutes from February 5th, 2024 City Council meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Move to read old business by title only.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to read old business by title only. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we'll go into item number 1, approval of City Council Ordinance 2024-01, establishing a municipal riverfront development project area within the city of Franklin, City Attorney Lynn Gray, and Community Development Director Dana Monson.
Dana, Krista was kind enough to let us know that she was going to be gone this meeting, but we wanted to move forward because this has been a long time development, and Dana was kind enough to volunteer to be here. This is set for a public hearing. Just to reiterate for you, what this would do is this would be developing 2 riverfront districts, which is permitted as a matter of statute. I think I looked at 53 different communities that have done this, and I'm sure there are more since the last time that I did the research when we started looking at this. What this does is it allows us to open up alcohol and beverage permits that we don't now currently have available, and that they're used in association with restaurants that wish to locate here. I would point out that what happens is someone who applies is coming in, bringing in a restaurant, needing the permit, would apply to the city pursuant to the guidelines that we have gotten for you to review. That would be then Krista would meet with the applicant, take down the information, then discuss with the mayor, and then bring it forth to the Board of Works, who would make a recommendation as to whether or not a permit, we would authorize the permit. The final authority then becomes with the alcoholic and tobacco, what is it again, the final, I can't remember all their acronyms, but the ABC, AT, what, yeah. Their final authority exists, just like it does now. So they ultimately make the decision, but what it does is it opens up the opportunity for us to ask for more of those permits. This ordinance that is before you, if you so are inclined to approve it, then directs the Board of Works to establish the guidelines. So it has to go then to the Board of Works for their adoption of the guidelines, but we anticipate, Chris and I went ahead and developed them anyway, so, because we kind of thought you might want to see what those guidelines would be when you were considering the ordinance, but the Board of Works would then go and adopt the guidelines, probably in the format that you've got there, unless they have some suggestions or questions. So I did not receive any comments after the introduction. Krista advised me she did not receive any comments, and I don't think you have either, Dana. I think this is probably a needed, quite frankly, it's an economic development tool. That's what it is. We have a couple of restaurants that want to be here, but they need a 3-way alcohol permit to do it.
So I just want to add a little background on what got us to this point. So before our last census, we were under 25,000. At under 25,000, you can take a beer and wine
You take a 2-way, make it a 3-way.
and make it a 3-way.
Yep.
And then when the census come out, we were under 30,000, so then you couldn't do that anymore, so that tucked that away.
Correct.
But it's like we got penalized because we were in between that 25 and 30,000 population. So if we were at 30,000, that would have fixed the problem, and we'd have been okay, because we'd have got more license. But,
Yeah. you're
and
right.
I don't want to say what I really want to say about the board, but,
Good.
yeah, I'll be quiet.
But in all seriousness, though, there are a lot of communities that have done this, even though they did get that 30,000. It really does just give us another arrow in our quiver to be able to attract businesses that we want. Because many that have more permits still went ahead and did this. And like I said, it's sometimes hard to think of as Youngs Creek as a river. But Greenwood also has several rivers, and it meets all the criteria.
Yeah.
But
And I did have one question about it. Now, how does it work, like the Willard and things that are already in that district? Do you just switch? So if someone wants to come in out there by the interstate, Texas Roadhouse, it's not in this district, and they want a liquor license, how do we get that liquor license over to them? How does that work?
we don't. I mean, we don't control it, but
Can I answer
they
that one?
could. Yeah, sure. I mean, from a legal standpoint, we don't. They're
Yeah.
all. That's what's clear. The ABC still controls all the permitting.
Yeah.
But it does open up some avenues that the Willard could turn around and sell it, and then take one of these.
Yeah, because I was doing a little research and looking at it.
Not
and
that
it
they
was
are. Don't report that. I don't know. I mean, that was just an
Yeah,
example.
no, I'm just,
Yeah.
and I'm just trying to figure, ultimately, because you can go with legal drains, you can go with all kinds of different things, do we need one out by the interstate?
We looked at that, and we couldn't find enough qualifying bodies of water to do
Okay.
it. But we did that was a consideration.
Okay.
And it didn't meet the statutory definition.
So I guess when I butted in, said, can I answer that? I just had a conversation yesterday with two business owners that brought it up to me, that if there's an opportunity that out by the interstate, that they would give their license up to get one of these
Yeah.
to trade it out.
Yeah,
So
and that's what I was, kind of hoping that, as we kind of work through it, we can work, hey,
Yeah.
would you guys fall under this if we can, bring in this? They may not want to just because some may be a competition.
That's right. And they may want to because generally more customers
Yeah.
works for everybody. But ultimately, the ABC controls the licenses, but we can certainly encourage people to work together.
And I just want to make the comment one more time that was in the newspaper. We're not trying to make this an alcohol destination. That is, we do not want that. So I just wanted to make sure that we're
Yeah.
saying that again.
Yeah, if you look at the statute, it talks about restaurants and developments, and that in your ordinance also mentions that kind of thing. It's in conjunction with those type of things, but it is set for public hearing, sir.
So I will open this up for public hearing. If anybody has any questions of what you heard us discuss or any that we haven't thought about yet. Seeing nobody move, I will close the public. Do you have something? I see you kind of smile. You got a question?
I'm new to all of this. So where is this exactly?
Ma'am, if you're going to ask a question, we only ask that you come to the podium so that our clerk treasurer can have a record of it.
Yes. So, sorry.
That's all right.
So I see the map, but I don't know where this is exactly, what the impact is for the community, for example.
It essentially borders Youngs Creek. It essentially is bordering Youngs Creeks, and it's a designated area that would allow someone that had a business within that area or is proposing to put a business in that area to come in and ask for a liquor permit to be granted. It only deals with the alcohol permits. There's still all the zoning requirements, still all the planning requirements. They still have to meet all of those. This is just that one issue of could they potentially get an
And,
alcohol
and where this is at, like that one right there, I believe that's downtown. The downtown area, and I will tell you, there was some residential area that fit into all this, but we don't want that. So we cut out some of it that could have been eligible for it. We're just looking at the business district, like on downtown and on 31, and that one's 31.
Yeah, and
the
then
other one's-
the other one, that's the downtown businesses. But to be very, very clear, and thanks for taking the time to come and ask questions, because we don't get them in public hearing. But to be very, very clear, this is a supplement to all other regulations that remain in full force and effect. So you can't go in the middle of a housing subdivision and go and ask for one. You're still bound by all of the planning, zoning, ordinances, those kinds of things.
And so these restaurants would be all along Youngs Creek, literally the
Well, it's hard
river
to say.
walk.
No.
It depends. No,
It's just a district.
That's correct.
Okay.
And it just allows them, but they would still have to find, an appropriate place that the zoning let them be, that the infrastructure was there. It just, they still have to comply with all those
All
things.
the other stuff.
Correct.
And this map is online, like we have a meeting agenda online, so then you can zoom in and kind of look and see exactly.
And get my bearings.
Right. But you may find a house, but that doesn't mean you can put a restaurant in your house. That's the important point.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. So I think we're ready for action at this point.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, we'll go to item number 2, which is also a public hearing. Approval of budgetary ordinance 24-01, authorizing an additional appropriation for the non-tax supported funds. Clerk Treasurer Jan Jones.
This was introduced at the previous meeting, and it's now ready for your approval.
And where we talk about additional appropriated non-tax supported funds, most of these are gifts from residents or organizations to be specified where to spend the funds at. So we'll open this up for a public hearing. Seeing nobody moving up, we will close the public hearing. Ready for your action.
I move to approve ordinance 24-01.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we will go on to the next item, approval of budgetary ordinance 24-02, transfer the 2023 unused appropriations to the Board of Works Capital Fund. Mayor Barnett, and what this one is about is basically what it says, the funds that were not used last year to go back into the Capital 400 Fund to cover the project list that I presented back in January. And this one is also for a public hearing, if anybody has any comments or questions. Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. So we're also ready for action on this one.
Move to approve budgetary ordinance 24-02.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. We'll go on to new business. There's only one under new business. I'll read it by title only, if that's okay, Mr. Austin.
Oh, I apologize. Move to read new business by title only. I was reading, I apologize.
We have a motion and a second to read by title only. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Update regarding the opioid collaboration, City Attorney Lynn Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is in follow-up to my prior discussion with you and your authorization for me to go back and speak with the county representatives and representatives from Bargersville, Edinburgh, New Whiteland, regarding potential uses for opioid funds. I thought it important tonight and particularly since there are people here, perhaps they haven't been to some of our prior meetings, to kind of give you the background. If you will recall, there was a national opioid settlement, and quite frankly, the funds have just been, they even exceeded what my expectations were. Very early on, $26 billion has been paid into a national fund by Johnson & Johnson, McKesson, Cardinal Health, and AmerisourceBergen. Indiana received $508 million of those funds, half of which were then dispersed to local governments. We have received those. There are also discussions, ongoing discussions about the people not only that manufactured the opioids and caused a problem, but those who marketed them, those who overprescribed them. For instance, $5.27 billion was paid by Allergan and Teva. CVS and Walgreens paid another $219 million. The numbers just keep continuing to grow. Pursuant to a statute that was adopted by Indiana, when Indiana gets its funds, half of those funds are then distributed to local entities, being counties and municipalities, and the remaining half is retained by the state of Indiana. Attached to your agenda was a copy of what funds we are expected to get at this point, even though there are ongoing discussions with other defendants in the lawsuit. So I expect those to grow over time. What those are going to be, we're not really going to know. If you look at the projected amounts of monies that we've received at this point, Franklin is projected to receive a total amount of $332,978.93, some of which we have already received and we've maintained in a separate account that's designated for that. Of that amount, $124,869 of it is unrestricted, meaning we could use it, not we, the council could appropriate it to anything that they wish to do, whether it be salaries, whether it be purchased. It is truly unrestricted. But the remaining funds, which, if my math is right, are restricted, and that's $184,360. So we have another $184,000 that we have to use for specific opioid abatement programs. And while that's nothing to sneeze at, that is spread out over 18 years. So if I divide it up, if my math were right, I divided it by 16 because we've already received the front-loaded 2 years. So that basically leaves us approximately $11,522.50 available to operate some type of a program. Well, you all are financial people. That's difficult to do on $11,000 a year. And while we'd like to have it, it's hard to come up with any kind of sustainable program over 16 years with that kind of money. That's what prompted a meeting with all of the other localities. I would also say to you that any entity that was receiving less than $5,000, that money automatically goes to the county. So while Edinburgh and Whiteland and Bargersville have participated in the talks, most of their money automatically goes to the county. But we've invited them to the table to see if they had ideas about how to do with the money. Lots of ideas were bantered back and forth. Some other counties have done things like hire more probation officers, buy tablets to have opioid programs in the jails, add juvenile probation training. I mean, it's just across the board what counties have decided to do with the money. And quite frankly, we didn't know in terms of the county entities. And I wanted to compare what we get to what the county gets just because of its size. The county's portion of these settlement funds to date is $5,417,863. $2,390,000 of that is unrestricted. So I think all of the entities that were at the table thought the unrestricted funds would be kept by those entities. But the question was, would we be interested in partnering with the county and taking our restricted funds and then creating a program where groups could come and make proposals to get grants? In theory, we could do it ourselves, and we could take our $11,000 a year and ask people to come in and get grants. Or we could partner with the county, and if their share is about $3 million, and so they have about $189,000 a year. So with us, it would be a pool of about $200,000 a year. And the idea that was floated was, what if we pooled our money together and then we offered it countywide and said, come in and tell us what you could do, whether it be a nonprofit organization, whether it be our fire department, whether it be our police, any entity within the county could come and apply for that. The downside is it may not be a Franklin entity. The upside may be it could be a Franklin entity that gets more than the $11,000 and gets $30,000, depending on what the project is. This is similar to what Hamilton County has done, because they felt, and that's why I gave you kind of a sample of what Hamilton County did. The county definitely has the most money. And Greenwood opted to keep their money because they were the second highest, and they wanted to just keep all of their money. They thought they had an ability, they had about twice as much as we did, and they thought they had an ability to, I don't think they wanted to partner, quite frankly. They just wanted to keep it themselves. They were not interested in partnering with the county for whatever reason. So that's their choice. We have that choice as well. I'm not advocating one way or the other, but literally looking for your direction as a council, because it is our money. And $11,000, my concern is at that little amount, we'll spend most of our time on administrative reporting and not actually providing a program of some type. But some subscribe to the idea that if just because someone doesn't live in Franklin doesn't mean that our hospital isn't dealing with it, or our police officer isn't taking an overdose, because it may be somebody that maybe lives in Bargersville. It's really a countywide problem. It doesn't stop at everybody's borders. And that was kind of the feeling about maybe doing this grant program, getting a representative from each one of the participating entities, including Bargersville, whose money doesn't, again, goes to the county, but the county was said we'd have Bargersville have a representative, Franklin would have a representative probably from the council, and once or twice a year open it up for people to come in and say, give us a proposal on what you would propose to do with it. It would require us to enter into some kind of interlocal agreement with the county. You could do it for 1 year, 2 years, or you could decide you don't want to do it at all. But we do have these funds that we have to start doing something with and start reporting back to the state, or we're gonna basically lose the funds if they're here. So that's kind of my update to you. I'm looking for direction, and what you would like to do, what makes sense to you. I don't have a specific program, because we met for hours and everybody had an idea. I know that integrated mobile health is, and chiefs are here and they can tell you, that has been a hot issue across the board with emergency responders. Essentially, the problem that it's trying to fix is oftentimes our folks will be called to either a place of an overdose or a family that has a crisis that's going on. Maybe the person that's in crisis is not appropriately taken to jail, because it's not a crime, but they need some assistance. The EMS doesn't, if they've administered Narcan, doesn't necessarily take them to the hospital because they can't be admitted to the hospital. They're here and they hand them a card and say, contact this social service agency. In 6 weeks, you can get an appointment. That's not effective. And first responders have identified this as we need some kind of a navigator system that can get that family crisis help at that night. Here's who to call and this person will respond and these kind of things. That has been such a hot topic that the legislature is now considering, it's got on its third reading, funding those kind of programs. But that's where a lot of this started. And I think after we sat at the table with the different people, they said, well, if we can get that integrated mobile health through the legislature, then are there other things that we can plug in with the social services agencies that maybe could do a $200,000 a year program or 2 or 3 $50,000 a year programs or something. So I'll be quiet and answer any questions that you might have or take any recommendations that you have or thoughts.
So I got a question, Ms. Gray. Are you looking for an answer tonight?
Well, everybody's looking for, some direction, but it's your pleasure, it's your money.
So this is up to the council.
Absolutely.
Absolutely to the council. I'll just give my suggestion is that we do partner with the county, because I found good things when we do partner and try to play along. I just think there'd be more of a effect. And I'll just be quiet and you guys.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
Do we have stats on, broken down by Bargersville, Franklin, what, the calls that you guys get? Or do we?
Oh, yeah, these guys have stats. I will, when we sat there, Betsy at the health department was really kind of leading a lot of it because she collects all those things that she has to lead them in. They do, and so often there's an overlap. Somebody in White River Township, in fact, while we were sitting there, there was a call to Center Grove Schools. While we were sitting there, White River Township responded to it, but they ended up coming down here to the Johnson Memorial Hospital. So it just crosses, there's so much interconnection, and then it involves the juvenile. Yeah, so I don't think I can answer your question. I'm sure those stats are available in terms of the number of calls. And what we ended up bogging down on is trying to come up with one program that would fit all sizes. And when we realized really what we're doing there is just sitting as a council, when probably the people out in the field could come up with a better proposal to us and say, we would need $50,000 and this is what we do with it, as opposed to us who aren't in the field trying to tell them what to do with it. And that's kind of what we came down to, maybe that reversing kind of our focus.
Josh?
Ms. Price, just to answer your question, we started implementing a program over a year ago now. Right after I became chief, we started implementing a program where when we go on these overdose cases, we offer them the information that Betsy has got set up through the crisis of intervention team, where we can get people help right away. And that's what the county, I know, is driving for, to get more people, because right now there's one paramedic, one person from rehab, and one of Betsy's staff, I think, is the only staff. So that they're driving for if the whole county can get on board with this, they can get more people, to answer these 24-hour-a-day calls that we get for overdoses. I mean, people are overdosing all hours of the day and night. I mean, it's not just like, we get an overdose at, in the middle of the day. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. It's 7 a.m. in the morning. They don't care. These people just need help, and that's what I think the county's really pushing for. If everybody comes together on this to make this program bigger. But like I said, the fire department's been working with the health department for over a year now, trying to get these people help. We give them the information, and then we give them the feedback to the health department. And the hospital does the same thing. So, because what happens is, like Ms. Gray says, they get Narcan, and as soon as they get Narcan,
They're fine.
I'm fine. See you later. Leave me alone now. Where's the paperwork? They know the system. I mean, Deputy Chief Summers can justify this. It is a street cred on how many times you've been brought back from death by Narcan. That is how you get your street cred. So.
And I don't know that, I mean, if you think about why we have the funds, right? Because we went and sued these manufacturers that are making a bunch of money. I don't know that you'll stop that, but there is a whole group of individuals that there's a gap. So what do you do with the family? What do you do with the grandmother whose grandson has overdosed and he says he's fine? How can you get that person? What about the kids? There's just all these gaps that there's got to be a way to address this. And I was astounded, but it knows no geographic lines and it knows no demographic boundaries. It can happen to anybody, anywhere, anytime.
So Ms. Gray, you said that Greenwood was not on board
That's
joining
correct.
forces. What about the other municipalities?
Everybody else.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody else. Is that fair, Chief? And like I said, even, because if we all wanted to take our balls and go home, we all could, except Bargersville, Edinburgh, Princess Lakes, and Trafalgar, they don't get enough to take it.
Sure.
But the county, and quite frankly, I asked the question, is if we're really going to collaborate, then shouldn't we let them come in even if, because the county already controls their money, and they were willing to let them come in too. So I've kind of put some credence in,
Okay.
because they don't have to. Yeah, and now, you could say we want to do this for a year or two, and then realize that all the money went to a county program, because I know that the police department, Karen has said, there's an agency that I would like for them to be able to do this. Judge Lloyd at the city court said, I would like to be able to do that. I think that would be the kind of thing you say, here's a grant application, here's the board, there's a member of our council that sits on this board, there's a member of the county that sits on this board, there's a member from Bargersville that sits on this board. Make your pitch. We might be able to get more than our $11,000 share, but we might not get any.
Right.
But now I think everybody else was wanting to do it.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
So how confident are we that if we take these funds and give them to the county, that they would be successful in doing this gap that we're seeing, that once these people are revived, then they walk away, but the help that they need, there seems that they're not getting specifically.
We're not. We don't know. To be perfectly frank with you, we don't know. All we know is, and I've sat through all of those meetings, is
Right.
that doing nothing is not the option.
No,
Yeah, I mean, but that's, sure, if you want to, I mean, this has been the long conversations, because everybody's got some kind of ideas. The one thing that I felt like with the government entities there, the thought process, but we're not very good at creating the program. We need to reach out to those people that are on the street doing it.
Councilman Austin, just to add to that, I know for a fact that since this program went into effect for basically a year now, there has been like 5 or 6 cases that have gotten help that night. Instead of getting put on a wait list, they get help that night. They get right into rehab that night and have been able to stay clean. So it is working, and that's what they're growing this. And what really helps out is the person from the rehab is an ex-addict.
Yeah.
And he
It's the
knows
mentor
what.
program here.
Yeah, he knows what these people are going through, so he's one of them that responds and talks to them, and he knows what they're going through, and he can relate to them, and it just helps them as far as getting, okay, you really want help? This is what we're gonna do, and he gets them there, so.
I fully expect the legislature to pass their integrated health bill. It's one of the few, even in a short session, that has made its way fast-tracked. So I fully expect there'll be funds dedicated solely to that are separate and distinct from the opioid. But to answer your direct question, I want to be as honest as possible. I don't know if it'll work. I really don't. By the same token, we've got to do something with it, and if you look at our restricted funds, it's very limited on what we can do. It has to be completely dedicated to opioid remediation. And our other ones, we can use to defer our salaries in the police department or the fire department, whatever you want to do. The unrestricted, you can do whatever you want to, but those restricted ones, we have to do something opioid-related.
So let me ask a question. If the council decides, okay, let's try this for 2 years, is it going to mess up a program that's already in place by the county if we decide this is not working, or do you?
No, because I think the concept is, well, the concept is that you would come in and ask for a grant and say, you know, we'd like to have, if you look at the first year, we'll probably have $250,000, $300,000 available on the first grant cycle. So ABC nonprofit would come in and say, we would like to do this program and we need $50,000. And then the council that would be made up of representatives from each entities that participating would either grant that grant, have some kind of reporting back requirement. But we would, and I think, Steve, from the very first time we talked, we thought about maybe creating an entity, and that's where we realized we're gonna spend all our cost on administration. Why reinvent that wheel if there's already maybe it's a public entity or maybe it's a private entity out there doing the job, so that we just fund it and ask them to report back rather than try to create an entity, because it's certainly not sustainable on the amount of money we have. And it may be more, because there's still some settlements that are out there that are pretty significant. But even at $300,000 a year, it's hard to sustain a department on $300,000, right? Sad, but that's true.
Mayor, what was you said you wanted to chime in?
No, I just found out, working as partners, working better together with other entities, it seems like things happen in a positive way. And I just recommend that we do this with the county. However, if there's something I'm missing here, it is a council decision, so.
I agree with the mayor.
Yes.
I do too.
I think with the amount that we get,
Yeah.
I mean, there's not much we can do with it, and I think, you know, you have more power in numbers, and I think that if we all band together, that maybe we can do something. And if we have the option of maybe a few years down the road backing out, if it's not working, fine. But I think we all band together and try to do something.
If that's,
Positive.
if
Yeah,
that's your inclination, what you could do, and you can do what you wish, but you could enter into an interlocal agreement and say, we're going to contribute X amount of dollars to this. In exchange, we will get a seat on the board, or, you know, we haven't gotten all of those details yet. I would recommend, since you're the one allocating it, that it be a council member of this board that would hear the grants, so you could come report back to your fellow councilman, you know, why we gave that money to this entity in Trafalgar or something. But I didn't go to that much detail other than a grant application, because it's not my decision to make without you telling me what you wanted to do.
And just to be clear, we're only talking about the restricted funds, right? Then we would keep the unrestricted
Keep the unrestricted funds.
within the city to help the police department,
There you
fire
go.
department, that type of
you
thing,
could-
whatever it happens to be.
You could buy park equipment, you could
Yeah.
do anything, it's literally unrestricted. It just
Okay.
goes into our general fund, and you can appropriate how you want. And I think, and the county's doing the same.
Yeah.
Because like I said, their total amount is $5 million, $5.4 million. So they're gonna take the $2.3 million and use it, and I don't blame them on their own projects.
So I think what I'm hearing, the council is interested in telling Ms. Gray to move forward with the county with provision that we have a member on that board.
If that's
Correct,
Yeah.
yes,
Does that
That would be correct.
Yes,
yes.
the use of all the restricted funds to, go into the pot.
Are you thinking a 2-year cycle to try it?
Ultimately, I would like to see probably 2, just because, in 2 years, it may be, we're getting $50,000. Once more people come in, and, maybe we have a program that we can do something here then at that time, but
It's front-loaded, so our first initial, I'd average it out over the 16 years. Our first initial, like, for instance, in 2021, we received, in 2021, we received roughly $23,067. Well, I'm sorry, 2022, $23,067. Well, 2022's already passed, so we could take that money plus what our 2024 is and put that in there together. Obviously, 23 is more than 11, but there are other years, 5 or 6 years from now, it's 8.
yeah.
So that's basically what, I averaged it to give you some idea. But if I'm hearing you correctly, I will go entertain interlocal and bring it back to you to consider in whatever terms to participate in a grant program. Is that what
Yes,
my marching orders?
yes.
Yes,
Plan.
Okay. You guys be thinking, who wants to serve on the board?
Sure.
What you need is another meeting.
There you go. That's what happens when you don't show up.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you for allowing me a little more time than I'm sure you wanted to on a dark night, but it's important.
I want to spend a lot of time on the next one. Under other business, cable pollution project update, the Masters Group, Natasha.
Yep, you forgot.
Skip
Clerk
one.
Treasurer.
You forgot, you skipped one.
I did?
Budgetary
Salary
ordinance
ordinance.
replacing, repealing and
Number 2.
replacing.
Okay, can I see that? I don't have it.
Not on this.
Here, right there.
Well, I'm really prepared, didn't I?
Yeah, you are. We snuck that one in there on you.
Okay.
This will be quick.
Okay. Inter-
Yeah.
Introduction of budgetary ordinance 24-03, repealing and replacing budgetary ordinance 23-07, salary ordinance, clerk treasurer Jan Jones. Sorry, Jan.
Right. This was introduced, probably January sometime, to Board of Works and I think council as well. This is just now to make it official. So if you look at that sheet, all we've done is made it one line item, going from the different titles of employees in the office to clerk treasurer support specialist coordinator with that top pay of $59,000. So it's just to make it official.
And just for the record, Jan, the 59,000 is where it caps out, but
That
there's,
is the cap.
and some of the,
Some are lower.
some are lower. Yes, okay.
And this is introduction.
It is just introduction.
So that one's real fast. That's introduction. It's been introduced. Thank you. Now, under other business, cable pollution project updates, the Masters Group, Natasha Marchand. And if you guys remember the cable pollution, what I keep referring to, the cable companies of, we all know who they are. They cause a lot of headaches, and we got into a contract here with Natasha to help, and I think it's been successful, and hopefully she can demonstrate that tonight.
Hopefully. So the line pollution project, as you know, we've started it a few months back. And of course, as the weather got nasty, it kind of slowed us down. But it also allowed us to figure out what was going on and get with the telecommunication companies, and really sit down with them and figure out how to resolve the issues. So if you can go to the next slide. And then, so it says line pollution is more than just overhead telecommunication lines, which is correct, because look at all the problems you see on ground. The pedestals, the handholds, sorry, I get short of breath. The next one here, those are the, when you go out, you see overhead lines, you see poles that are cracked, busted, cables hanging. There's one in the middle, if you see that the cable is just hanging on someone's fence. That's definitely not how it's supposed to be. And I know that homeowner was not too thrilled, but it's a common occurrence everywhere you see. We actually got a phone call, there was the pole behind the Chamber of Commerce is cracking. There are over 12 cables on it, and it is a skinny pole, it's only a 30. A 33 is what it's called. And it's just splitting, but it was installed in 1951. So, but the problem is it's set in concrete. So now Duke Energy has to figure out how to engineer that and get that one out and get it replaced with the correct one. If you go to the next slide, surrounding the problems that we have underground, handholds left open where they come out and they do locates, you know, when they're gonna do construction. In the middle, you can see where a manhole, they installed it. They actually installed it on private property. It wasn't even in the easement like it was supposed to be, but it was collapsing. Yeah.
Whoops.
So we got that one and we addressed it and got it resolved within 48 hours. The one to the far right, you can see that the pedestal is completely shattered. Those are all over everywhere you look. And what's happening is little kids are outside playing. They bump into them, they scratch themselves, they get infections, they get cut. We don't want that. And it's not very pretty to look for the city. So if you go to the next slide, we also have the underground issues. So with the underground issues, this is where Verizon has accepted responsibility over on Hurricane. Yeah, they went right through a line. Did we find out what type of line it was?
There was a water line in under an old water line, so the old water line, they cut it, plus the new water line that was under it, they bored through it as well.
So I got information on this one and I started emailing the next day. Because actually I was at dinner when he called me. So when we were informed of it the next day, we started searching it and locating who it belonged to because there's no label. Within 24 hours, Verizon called back and said, it's us. So surprise, surprise, it was in the same path as the manhole. So, I mean, it's easy to start identifying them. They've given us maps now of all their utilities, aerial and underground. If you go to the next slide. So we started this in 2023, and if you go to the next one, we've identified in the air, just in the small time that we've been doing this, 936 issues overhead. If you go to the next slide.
Crazy.
37% have been solved. It doesn't seem like much, but that 36, 387 of those belong to Comcast. 262 belong to Brightspeed. 203 belong to Metronet. And then the rest belong to just, a few of the others. So right here we have 378 issues that relate to ground facilities. If you go to the next, 19% have been solved already. Now, with that being said, that's where they're coming out and they're fixing the pedestals. Or they're fixing the handholds or fixing the manholes or anything that they're seeing wrong when we put it on a map for them. I know our guys are actually going out there, so if they're out there and they see a pedestal that's broken or say it's just missing the top and it's not broken, we just put the top back on. I'm not gonna put a note and say, hey, fix this when we can do it. So if you go to the next slide, we've had 4 issues of underground. If you go to the next slide, they're all fixed. And everyone they've accepted accountability for each one of those problems. You go to the next slide. So in October, I got this bill from the city asking for their help. $11,000 is a lot that the city covered, but they were getting no resolution on getting it taken care of. Go to the next slide, please. We got Brightspeed to issue a payment in the mail on the 13th of this month. So we finally are getting paid for it. So we are making a big difference. This is not just sticking to the city now. Other municipalities are stepping in and taking action, and it's causing the telecommunication companies to take action more. We've had sit-downs with Comcast Government Affairs. We've had sit-downs with Brightspeed, Verizon, AT&T, all of them have sit down with my company and discuss plans of actions on how to resolve a lot of the issues. We've got some DES projects going down US 31, which is affecting some of it, but not much. So, and we know once that project expands and the poles are moved, those issues on Long 31 are gonna go away. If you go to the next slide, please. State representatives are now listening. They've been listening since he requested the first meeting, and it's getting more and more talk. So what we're doing here in the city of Franklin is really making a difference. And so because of that, everyone is starting to come together and fix the problems, so it cleans up the city and makes it a safer place to live, and it looks better. So that's where we're at right now.
Okay, thank you, Natasha. I just wanted you to come in and give everybody an update, because they do give the funds to pay for this. And we are gaining traction, and we have been working close with state representatives and a couple senators, and there are interest in from other municipalities, and that's why we are having these companies now reach out to us and say, hey, how can we fix this? Because they know that there's legislation that's in the works to come down the road, and they're trying to fix it before. And I told the one the other day, I said, just because you're here and you're volunteering to fix this, I'm not going away. And they said, we understand that. So, but they are showing good faith. The comms are showing good faith of trying to fix it as we still move forward with the legislation.
And we've still got crews out on the floor doing more, or on the ground doing more audits. So they're still walking the town, and you'll see them out and about. They're still taking the pictures, and we have a map system that identifies all the problems, and we've shared it with all the telecommunication companies, so they can actually go in and see the areas. It's also shared with the mayor's office, which allows them to see it, identify it, and fix it. You know, and they'll give me a time and say, hey, it's gonna take us a little while to get to it, or hey, we'll get this out there tomorrow. So, I mean, it is making a lot of headway, and which is a good thing. So being able to not overload them with too much, because all the ground stuff we've kind of trickled in there, but we've got much more that's coming their way, and they know with the new city ordinance, they have to get it fixed. So they are working with us to get it done.
Natasha, I'm curious, because my impression is that many of these companies utilized poles that maybe belonged to Duke, and
Yes.
and was Duke even aware they were doing these? I can't imagine that they would be receptive to people just attaching things to
Well,
their
the
poles.
way it works when it comes to, so I'm on both sides, so I see both sides of it. So when you do a pole attachment as a telecommunication company, you put their proposal into Duke. You get the approval to attach, just like in Barkersville, anywhere else. And they give you a height, they attach to it, someone goes out there within 90 days of you attaching, and that's the last time it's inspected. Now, 5 years later, when they do their audit, they don't check the lines. They count the lines. They count how many lines and who is on that pole, but they don't pay attention to what the cables look like. So majority of all these poles, especially in Franklin, are Duke. So we've put in countless and countless tickets to Duke. We actually had like the one over in the park where it was a power pole. It's the only type of pole right there, you know, and it's for utility, or the lights. And the down guy, the anchor and down guy that supports that electric, was wrapped around the tree just across from the picnic area.
I can't imagine they would like that. I mean, I would think Duke would say,
No.
this is not a good
So I
thing."
sent that to Duke, and I showed them the pictures. They were actually able to drop down on Google Earth and see it too, so it had been there for a little while. They had someone out there within the week and had it fixed.
So they can kind of partner with us. I mean, they're on the same
Yeah,
board with us.
they are. They're trying to fix it. They have a department that does that. But at the same time, they're so big that, you know, they don't pay as much attention. That's why the telecommunication companies need to be responsible for the cables.
Any other
Natasha, I
questions?
appreciate the work you're doing, and it's obviously making a huge impact, like you mentioned, and we really appreciate your efforts.
Thank you.
Thank you, Natasha. Okay,
That's good stuff.
it's been a good talkative meeting, so we'll start with council comments with Josh,
No comments tonight.
Ann.
Just want to wish Miss Gray a belated happy birthday.
But who's counting?
Ken?
Thank you.
Ditto to what Ann said. Happy birthday, belated. I don't have anything else, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Sean?
Nothing tonight, sir.
Oh, nothing for me, sir. And ditto to what Kenny and
I was gonna say the same thing. Happy belated birthday, Lynn.
I was going to say something, but I can't remember. I'm too old.
do you want to say happy birthday?
No. That's my gift. Please don't.
Jan? Tara? I'm good. Okay, I have nothing either except happy birthday.
Thank you.
All right, so need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.